Hello, you sentient ball of stardust. My name is Casey Davis. I'm a therapist and I'm an author of the book How to Keep House While Drowning, where I talk about ways to make it a little bit easier to take care of yourself when you're overwhelmed, stressed, have mental health issues, physical health issues, or maybe you're just in a hard season of life. Maybe you're looking for a place that you can come and listen to some practical advice. This is a podcast for all of the self-help rejects. We're going to talk about skills for survival and self-kindness. And I'm going to leave the pop psychology at the door. I promise not to tell you to meditate or to journal. We're just going to give you some really insightful conversations with hopefully some practical advice. So I don't believe you need to pick yourself up by the bootstraps. I don't want you to just try harder, and I don't believe that laziness exists. So join me over on Struggle Care, where we can find compassionate solutions that help us function a little bit better.
You probably know the feeling. Sweaty, fast breathing, quick heart rate. That's a cortisol spike. It feels awful, and its imbalance is the cause of your anxiety. Rebalance Health's 3-part anxiety system helps address it at the root. Rebalance Health lozenges are natural and designed for optimal absorption, providing 24-hour relief. Live life fully without feeling like you're fighting for it. Get 50% off your first month with code CALM23 at rebalancehealth.com.
Stoveleg Media, igniting conversation.
Hi guys, happy Friday and welcome to I've Been Thinking. I'm Elena Grace, your host. And before we get started, I just have to tell you guys one thing really quick, super funny. I'm sitting here, turning things on and everything, and I'm like, why won't my microphone work? Oh my gosh, I'm so concerned. It wasn't plugged into my computer. So there's that. Oh, and if you hear a jingling right now, that's Belle coming to visit. She wants to sit in on recording with me, I guess. So anyway, I'm just going to jump right into it. Today is our August Book of the Month Club. And I'm going to be talking about William Faulkner's Light in August. Now, I told you guys this one is crazy relevant to current events in certain ways. And I mean, I think it's an incredible book. I read it a while back for the first time. And you have to be prepared for Faulkner. He is a wordy son of a gun, but I love him because I'm a wordy son of a gun. And so you just have to be prepared for him and his style and really put the thought into following what's happening. But it is an incredible book. It is regarded as one of his most memorable, one of his best. It contains some of his most memorable characters who we're going to talk about today. But Faulkner was a pretty cool dude. This book qualifies as both Southern Gothic and modernist, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I definitely recommend that you check it out. So, Light in August was written by William Faulkner in 1932. Y'all, 1932. That just goes to show how much of a classic this book truly is, that it stands the test of time in such a way that it can still be applicable to things going on today. So to very much summarize this book and not really get into any spoilers or anything, in case you've not read it, Light in August focuses on Lena, an unwed mother who is searching for the father of her unborn / soon-to-be-born child. Reverend Hightower, whose wife left him, and he devolved into alcoholism in front of a judgmental congregation. And Joe Christmas, a man who is unsure of his parentage and his race, which are kind of essential pieces of knowledge back then. And then we also have Byron, the timid and quiet man who has never really made himself a part of society before. He's always been very much to himself, just taking care of what needs done. He's got some kind of friends, but not really. And he is very much a loner until he meets Lena, and he's forced into society because he tries to help her. So I'm going to focus on two of the major themes that this novel hits on. And I will absolutely be skipping over some major stuff, like Joe Christmas's hatred of women and where that stems from. I mean, serial killer in the making, am I right? But these two subjects are very poignant to today, to literally everything going on right now. So these are the two that I want to highlight the most in this episode. Now, first, I want to address the idea of man's need to live within himself while also recognizing his role and responsibility to fellow man. And I mean, what is more relevant right now during a global pandemic where we're faced every day with small sacrifices or extreme selfishness? And in the context of this novel, we see each character suffer from some sort of isolation, right? So Joe Christmas is unable to find a community to identify with. Lena's pregnant, unwed, and alone. The Reverend Hightower is suffering from loss and alcoholism, and he's doing that on his own. So all of these things come together. Oh, and I want to say Reverend Hightower's wife didn't leave him. She died. I'm 99% sure, but I said left him earlier, and now I'm confused. Anyway, he lost his wife. Okay, so there's that. I just want to clarify. But so there's all of this isolation, and that makes holding yourself accountable for others that much more difficult, because you don't feel like you're a part of that community, so you don't feel like you are like you have to participate in those rules or whatever. So this concept of recognizing responsibility becomes, very complex in this book. So Byron, for example, has created isolation for himself. He isn't shunned ever by any means. He just doesn't make himself a part of things. Like, people know he's kind of quirky, but they don't think that there's anything wrong with him or weird about him. They give him space because they have figured out that he wants space, right? And then when pregnant and alone Lena comes into town and into Byron's life, Byron willingly takes responsibility of her and her unborn child. He sees somebody in need, and he's like, and he learns more about her also, so that becomes part of it as well. But he takes responsibility for her, and so this thrusts him into society in a very new way. Joe Christmas is isolated, partially because of his own inability to come to terms with his identity, but also by society's inability to put him into a specific box. He can't find his role in society, and thus he struggles all of his life to accept himself, but also he continuously struggles to be accepted because he can't find his space. So Joe actually recognizes his responsibility to fellow man, though. So when he finds himself in the wake of committing murder, he actually comes to peace with himself. And in that moment, he is recognizing, I'm responsible for my actions. I'm responsible for these things that have happened to other people, and comes to peace. But once again, society refuses him, and the town allows him to be brutally lynched. And then ultimately, Reverend Hightower, he realizes that mankind cannot isolate himself from fellow man. Rather, that he must be a part of the community, assuming responsibility for his own actions and also for those of his fellow man. Spoiler alert, this revelation is implied to be his dying thoughts, so that sucks. But he has this incredible growth spurt that really every person should have, that every person should become aware of at some point in their life, that you cannot ever truly isolate yourself. Your actions will always affect somebody else, and then that will go on to affect their actions and who they are, and rolling on home, But all of this, Reverend Hightower had lived this life of worrying about other people's opinions and living up to an ideal set forth by his Civil War hero grandfather. So he had never taken the time to explore those ideas on his own. He had always been trying to live up to somebody else's ideals. So, very similarly, so many people today, I think, are more concerned with other people's perceptions of themselves. So, what does my Instagram look like? Am I on trend? Blah, 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 whatever. And, I get it, okay? I like looking good. Trust me. I understand. But I spent a long time on getting right with myself. And that's what I worry about more than getting likes on Instagram, because I don't need that validation. The validation I need is, do I like who I am? And I think that worrying about that kind of thing in the long run can create a degree of self-centeredness and entitlement. And those are issues that we see coming into play right now with the coronavirus pandemic. So where we saw Reverend Hightower, he is very self-centered. He thinks that he's got these big problems and he's the only one and he can't help anybody else. Whatever. People don't want to wear a mask because they think it's inconvenient. Yeah, well, one of my grandmothers getting coronavirus and dying would be a way bigger freaking inconvenience than you wearing a piece of cloth over your face for the 45 minutes you're in Kroger. But, that's not your fault. That's not your responsibility, right? So it just blows my mind that there is such this mindset of, I can do whatever I want and it doesn't matter because it doesn't affect you. But yes, it does. For example, Reverend Hightower had every opportunity to save Joe Christmas as he was running from a mob who was coming to lynch him. And Reverend Hightower did not take that opportunity because he did not think that he was responsible for the actions of others. When in reality, he was very much responsible for things that had happened. And he could have taken responsibility right there, opened his door, and given Joe Christmas a safe place to hide, and he didn't. So that makes him complicit in the actions of the town. We live in a community. They lived in a community. We live in a community. And that means that to an extent, our actions are both representative of those around us, but they also have a direct effect on those around us. So we should act with the best interest of everyone in mind as often as possible. And this notion of individualism, of saying, well, I'm responsible for me and maybe my own family. That's so problematic. That's so selfish. And especially in the United States, we see it so much, and it's becoming kind of iconic, or it has become, I suppose, kind of iconic to the United States, which is an idea I'm going to be discussing in a later episode, actually. So if you want to hear more on that, definitely stick around. But moving back to the book, and moving away from my rant on individualism and community and responsibility, another of the most important themes in this novel is that of racism and racial identity. So Joe Christmas is, of course, the center point for this, because even though he presents as white, he is very light-skinned, and to look at him, he is described as, looking like a white man. He is told as a small child that he is biracial. And he was raised in an orphanage, right? So he can't really ever know for sure who his parents are, because he has no knowledge at all of where he came from. But even as a small child presenting as white in a frickin' orphanage, he experiences all kinds of racism. Horrible things happen to him. They treat him differently, of course. And it negatively colors his upbringing and his perception of the potentially black part of him. So this then contributes to major problems as an adult, where he has trouble developing his own identity, because he doesn't want to identify as black because he knows the problems it can cause. But at the same time, he very much identifies with that community because he has been marginalized from everybody. So he, sometimes he's disgusted, like I said, by the idea of blackness. And at one point, he even beats a prostitute for being willing to sleep with a black man. He does this thing where he goes and he sleeps with prostitutes, and he says at the end of the session or whatever, he's like, by the way, I'm part black. And he judges their response. And if they don't respond the way he thinks they should, as in this case, he becomes extremely angry because he has this prejudice against himself. And other times, he lives in black communities and tries to become a part of the community and learn about the culture. And he's just in this purgatory of shame and pride. And he wants to hide himself. But at the same time, he wants to tell everybody he's quote unquote close to about his heritage, or, what he believes to be his heritage. And this all brings up the question of whether Joe Christmas's identity crisis is a result of not knowing his ancestry and his immediate family, or if it's a result of the societal definitions of race. So personally, I would argue that he's unable to come to terms with his identity mainly. I think that knowing your family as much as possible and having a family who treats you like a family is really important. But I would argue that he is unable to come to terms with his identity, not because there are two unique cultures present that he may belong to equally, but that those cultures are pitted against each other as polar opposites and completely unable to blend with one another. So this, of course, is relevant as we are experiencing a modern civil rights movement as I speak. Something that's so beautiful to behold, as it highlights the ways that we can be better, and also the ways that society as a whole, but typically for white people, benefits from the oppression and underrepresentation of people of color. And furthermore, in similar ways to Joe Christmas's inability to reconcile his identity, I have seen and heard of so many people of color, and specifically mixed race people, who have difficulty in either identifying their identity to themselves or to others because of the boxes and expectations that are placed on people and cultures in modern day. You know, being placed into a box that you don't actually fit into, that's not comfortable. Now, I don't want to speak too much on this right now because it's not my place to speak on other people's experiences. And I would rather have somebody here who has experienced similar things to that to talk with me about it. But I feel it is absolutely necessary to highlight this integral theme of the book and its relevance to modern experiences because, I mean, we have to acknowledge those things. So really, that's it for today, guys. I've kind of got up on a soapbox a little bit here and there, but I really hope you found this discussion of Light in August by William Faulkner thoughtful and hopefully thought-provoking. Please let me know what you thought on our Instagram. I would love to discuss this more. Y'all, I have so enjoyed this. Please follow us on Instagram at I've Been Thinking Pod and comment on today's post what you thought, you know, any discussion, whatever, or DM me. Subscribe wherever you listen. And if you use Apple, please leave a 5-star review. A written review would be awesome too, talking about how good I am. And yeah, again, thank you so much, everybody. And I will talk at you next week, guys. Bye.
Hello, you sentient ball of stardust. My name is Casey Davis. I'm a therapist and I'm an author of the book How to Keep House While Drowning, where I talk about ways to make it a little bit easier to take care of yourself when you're overwhelmed, stressed, have mental health issues, physical health issues, or maybe you're just in a hard season of life. Maybe you're looking for a place that you can come and listen to some practical advice. This is a podcast for all of the self-help rejects. We're going to talk about skills for survival and self-kindness. And I'm going to leave the pop psychology at the door. I promise not to tell you to meditate or to journal. We're just going to give you some really insightful conversations with hopefully some practical advice. So I don't believe you need to pick yourself up by the bootstraps. I don't want you to just try harder, and I don't believe that laziness exists. So join me over on Struggle Care, where we can find compassionate solutions that help us function a little bit better.
Between aging and busy lifestyles, many women struggle with maintaining their physical and mental wellness. At Aquavita Concierge Healthcare Services for Women, we can help you revitalize your health and reclaim your life. We start from within by balancing your hormones, allowing your body to achieve and maintain desired weight goals. We also specialize in peptide therapies, regenerative medicine, sexual health, and aesthetics in our state-of-the-art facilities. Feel better, look better, live better at Aquavita. Visit aquavitality.com and begin your journey today.